And now to Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat of New York. Senator, welcome back to the NewsHour. Let me just say, you've been talking about this issue for years. Today, you said it's an epidemic of sexual assault in the military. You said nothing has been done in 15 years. Whose fault is that?
It's the Department of Defense and it's the command. They have said since Dick Cheney was the Secretary of Defense 25 years ago that there was zero tolerance for sexual assault. I've been having hearings about this since 2013, and every time a commander comes in front of our committee, they say that they've got this, and they don't. They keep saying commanders are the only people who can fix this problem, but unfortunately the problem is getting much worse. Not only are there still 20,000 estimated sexual assaults each year, but the percentage of cases that are going to trial is going down, and the percentage of cases ending in conviction is also going down.
And Senator, let me just ask you quickly about solutions. Today, the Pentagon announced the members of this independent review commission they're creating. We also, as I have just heard in our report, women themselves who are part of the 18th Airborne Corps in the Army are saying we need to change training methods. Are these things likely to make a difference?
Well, of course, we should do everything we can to train our members of the armed services as best as we can, and we should do everything we can for prevention. But the way to send a message and the way to change the culture is convict predators. If you actually convict rapists and recidivists, there'll be less rape and less recidivism. And in fact, it sends a message that these are crimes that are not tolerated in the military. When you don't actually prosecute assailants and you don't prosecute the crime of rape, well, of course predators feel that they have more and more leeway to continue to commit these crimes. So that's why I believe we need to professionalize how the armed services handles these cases, and the decision about whether or not to go to trial in a given case should be given to a trained military prosecutor who's outside the chain of command of the victim and the accused. If you did that, then survivors would know that there was someone who would look at their case, who has no skin in the game, who has no bias, who doesn't know them or the accused, who will give them a fair shake. It will mean more survivors come forward, and it will also mean that because of that professionalism, perhaps different cases are chosen and there's a better end result.
Well, in connection with that, let me ask you about two things. One is the way the so-called military separation boards operate. Changing that, could that make a difference? And also, at your hearing today, we heard Amy Frank recommend that victim advocates should be independent of the chain of command. That's something you support?
I fully support that. First of all, we've heard from victim advocates that they have been bullied, that they have been pressured, that they have not been given the authority they need to actually support their client by taking a case, for example, to the Inspector General for retaliation. They're not allowed to represent their client in the same way that a regular lawyer is. And they don't have the same authority, they don't have the same ability to represent these clients in these types of litigation. And so, yes, I would love them to be independent of the chain of command. And yes, I'd like them to have more training and actually be more senior.
And Senator, in connection with the commander's ability to punish alleged perpetrators, you did introduce 8 years ago legislation creating a new channel for adjudicating sexual assault. At the time, there wasn't support in the Pentagon, there wasn't support among your Senate colleagues. Is there support now?
Yes, I think there's much more support now. A number of my colleagues that I've spoken to have said, I wanted to give other reforms a chance. Now that it's been 8 years, I think I might change my mind. And so I think there's a number of senators that were previous no votes will now be yes votes. We also have a commander-in-chief in the White House who has said he wants to take these cases out of the chain of command. He has been very clear about his views on sexual violence, having not only written the Violence Against Women's Act, but being at the forefront of these issues. So we have a commander-in-chief in Joe Biden that supports this kind of reform. And so hopefully he's informed his Secretary of Defense to do a 3-month investigation and to have a report. Hopefully that commission will look at these ideas and hopefully support them. But in the meantime, I'm going to get the bipartisan support I need for this bill. There's few bills in Washington that has the support of both Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz, both Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, but this bill does. It's the kind of common sense reform that could transform how survivors see this issue. It's the one thing they've asked for. They've asked over and over again, survey after survey, that if we could change one thing, they would change who makes the decision, and they would ask it to be someone outside the chain of command who's trained and has the kind of skills and unbiased ability to do the work.
And Senator, something else I do want to ask you about, and that is your home state governor, Andrew Cuomo. As you know, he's now been accused by 8 different women of sexual harassment, incidents of sexual misconduct. You and your fellow New York Senator Chuck Schumer have called on him to step down, as has a majority of the New York congressional delegation. There are investigations underway, but he says hasn't done anything wrong. He's not going to step down, and he says people calling for him to do that are part of the so-called liberal cancel culture group. Is that what's going on?
No, that's an absurd statement. Given that he will not step down, we have 2 investigations that will move forward. The Attorney General will do her investigation, as will the State Assembly. They will begin impeachment investigations. Those are 2 significant investigations that will take months. But again, given where we are with COVID and the economy, I think it's very difficult, given that our governor has lost the support of most of his governing partners.
So are you saying you think he'll hold on for months while these investigations take place?
He might. I think that's what he said. So I disagree. I think we should be focused on the important task of governing and getting these resources into the economy. And I think it'll be very hard to do that given where he is.
Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.